Uma Iyer to join us as a speaker for today's talk. Before starting the Unmukt Green Talk, I will quickly take you through whatever work Unmukt does and what we do. So I'll finish it very quickly in like 4 minutes. Okay, so Unmukt Foundation, whatever we do, or we want to challenge the competitive, unhealthy, and unhappy lifestyle. And whatever we do, we try to get back that joy, happiness, and connection back with nature and oneself to all. To do that, we work on to make holistic, localized, and indigenous education accessible to all age group, not only kids, and to create eco-friendly communities across India and the world. This is our vision, and we want to do that because why do we need anybody to say us that you are burning your own home? Why Unmukt is required? We want to reach it to that space that Unmukt won't be required at one point, that all people will be that much aware about environment. So to do this possible, we work on three core areas. One is education, another is environment and culture. We think that these three components are very much important to achieve our dream to connect all and to live in coexistence. So in education, we have Unmukt Creativity Center. So through that, in 2017, Unmukt started, and we work with Basti kids. When we started, we asked these kids, like, what is your dream? One of the kids said, I want to be a lift operator. Another said, I want to be a thief. Few of them were speechless because nobody had asked them before. Am I audible to you all? It's fine. Yeah. So in
Yeah, yeah.
1 or 2 years down the line, the same kids were able to create remote control robots and were able to work together. So this is the little impact we have made. And Project Jedi is the birth, or I would say the gift of COVID-19, and the credit goes to all our volunteers. Some of them are here, Monali, Saurav, and others. All of them, like, they have worked relentlessly to connect. I'm getting goosebumps when I'm talking about it. To connect with kids who were coming to Unmukt. Few of our kids, even they didn't have food also. They are the offspring of people who were daily wagers and carpenter. So their parents had no job. So they connected with them, and right now we are able to work with 60 kids, uh, kids who have access to smartphone, and we are teaching English through stories. And the kind of result we got through Project Jedi, we thought, why not to take it forward? Even after COVID-19, we have a plan to continue this project, because through that we can connect with more and more kids. Another thing is Ecoversity. This is the dream, like, we haven't started it yet. Like, we want to make a ecological university in rural areas in like 3 years down the line, but need support from all of you. Culture. So Unmukt Art is the space we have created for artists and art lovers, where anybody can come, sing, dance, share their own stories. Through this, we have reached more than 400 artists and art lovers. We do art campaigns. We have done a Kapahi Jivan project last year. In that, like, we worked with 250 elderly of Bhubaneswar, and we published an anthology of their own stories. So that was a very good experience, and with a very short team we were able to do that. So it was quite unbelievable for us also to do it, and to do the coordination entire, and working with 250 elderly. uh, Now, the environment in which our work is, I think, more tangible and visible also. The Unmukt Green Army works on plantation and plant restoration. So, after severe cyclone Fani happened in Bhubaneswar, uh, we were only three people in the team that time, and we put it on social media that from tomorrow we are going to start restoration resurrection of fallen trees along with forest department. And same day, like, we posted it in 7 in the evening, and 6 a.m. in the morning we got 20 new people working with us. And 15 days of time, there were like 120 people who were working with us, 120 volunteers on a different time. And we were able to resurrect more than 2000 trees in the city. And we made flyers and infographics, how to save trees, how to resurrect them. We did that. We do climate action rally and climate awareness program also. We go to schools to talk about climate action, why this action is necessary, why is it important to work, not only do the plantation but save our environment also. To take it forward, we started this green talks. In that, it's not only about talking about climate action, but inviting people, change makers who are actually working, and taking some small green steps to make change. So yeah, so this is our first talk of Unmukt Green talk, and I'm really happy that my mentor has agreed, and Uma has agreed to take this forward. And yeah, so this is a bit about Unmukt. And yeah, so would love to tell about a bit about Uma. So Uma is a renowned writer and a permaculturist now. She is an avid nature lover. She has done design course certification in permaculture in 2017. After that, she volunteered to conduct International Permaculture Convergence Conference also. And after that also, that journey didn't stop there. She went ahead and took a training on permaculture teachers training. Now she takes courses on permaculture and give lecture also on that. So welcome to our talk and Zoom and Unmukt, Uma. Um, so I would love to know what made you to shift from, being a writer and living comfortably in your adopt to permaculture. What made you interest? What's your story? Over to you.
Thank you, Shweta. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Shweta, for having me over. And I wouldn't know if I can call myself your mentor. All I did was speak with you a couple of times. So a little about me would be, yes, I'm a writer. That's all I can do. That's what I keep telling. Words are the only thing I know. So as part of working on an article, I used to work for the Better India. It's a website which posts only positive news. And as part of that, they asked me to do something new, and this word permaculture just kept popping up. So I went and attended one session, which was being conducted by Aranya Agricultural Alternatives, which is run by Narsana Kopula. And he just managed to turn my entire thought process in that 30-minute talk. And I just on the spot signed up for a 12-day permaculture design course, certification course. And I didn't know anybody. It meant I had to go and stay in their farm, which is about 100 kilometers away from Hyderabad, for about 12 days, 12 to 14 days actually. And I don't know what prompted me, but I think those 14 days were the best days of my life. They changed my entire perspective about what I'm doing to this planet, what I'm doing for this planet, and what I'm doing for myself and my children, right? So yeah, that is how permaculture happened. And permaculture is, contrary to what everybody believes, it is not just about gardening and plants and trees. It is much more. It is a way of life, and it just changes your mindset. So if you could give me some 30 minutes, I think I'm hoping at least one of you goes and does PDC after this talk. So yeah, that's
Sure,
about it.
sure. And I think everybody should go to PDC. I met Uma there only, and I had attended this course in
Yeah.
Aranya only, and she was one of the facilitator. And her sessions changed my view. So it was a very small interaction, but there is a lot. But that's why I called her my mentor.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to begin with something that so we call them elders. Okay, these people who have been practicing permaculture for a very long time. So when I was helping with the international IPL, the International Permaculture Meet, I met somebody very interesting, and she said something which just stayed with me. And she said, "What do you keep talking about? Save the earth, save the earth, save the earth. The earth doesn't need saving. She survived the dinosaur era, and she'll survive. You also. Now you only worry about yourself and how you're going to save your lives." Okay. So it's not about saving the earth at all. It is about saving ourselves. Just let's be very clear on this. Yeah. Okay. Now, uh, I'll go back a little before going on to permaculture. We'll talk about three kinds of systems that are in existence. All right. They're called degenerative systems, the generative systems, and the regenerative system. Now, the simple definition of a degenerative system would be anything that causes degeneration, or it is a system that does not give back, it only takes. And what would be the example of it? The simplest example is how we are using the fossil fuels, right? It is just, we keep taking from the earth and we're not giving anything back. So that is an example of a degenerative system. After that, we have the generative system. It is a system which is defined as something that has the power or function of generating, originating, or producing and reproducing. And the most amazing example of a generative system is our human body. Correct? We are capable of generating cells, we are capable of reproducing, right? And organic farming, as we call it, someone had posted a question about organic farming and permaculture. I'm hoping this would answer their question. Um, Organic farming is a very, very good example of a generative system. Now, generative system is really good. It can give back to the society. But there's one small problem with it, that it is only as good as the other systems that are around it. So for a small example, if I have a small 5-acre organic farm, all right, now I'm doing everything right. I'm not using a drop of chemical on it. I'm not using any bad pesticide, nothing. I am doing everything by the book, and it's a perfect system. But my neighbor is using pesticides by the kilo. What happens to the groundwater? The groundwater seeps in, comes to my farm, and it affects my farm as well. So my farm actually is perfect, but it is dependent on my neighbors and the neighbors' farms. Correct? So that is why we say that a generative system is only as good as the systems around it. And the minute that the other systems start collapsing, this generative system will start moving towards degenerative. Is that clear? Right? I'm hoping I'm making sense here. Yeah. Okay. Now comes the, okay, before we go on to what is a regenerative system, Mahatma Gandhi in his book Gram Swaraj had said that every village should be its own republic. He had said that it needs to be independent of its neighbors for its own vital wants and yet interdependent for many others in which dependence is necessary. What did he mean by this? He just meant that every village should be self-sufficient but not live in silos or not live in isolation, because we cannot live in silos. We are not meant to live in silos. We grow because of each other, right? So every village has to be self-sufficient but be capable of interconnecting with each other. And that is what he wanted. If you read his book called Gram Swaraj, you'll get to know about this principle, right? Now we come to the regenerative system. It is a system which is capable of restoring, renewing, or revitalizing its own resources and energies and material, right? To regenerate means to recreate from scratch, right? And one of the best examples of a regenerative system is the forest. Do we need to do anything? Does man need to do the animals go and sow seeds in the forest? No, they don't. Do we need to go and plow? Oh, it is time for the rabi crop. Oh, it's time for the kharif crop. I think we should go and plant so 2 mango trees and come. We don't do all that. Do we say, oh my God, the leaves are yellowing, maybe I should add some nitrate, potassium, something and come back? We don't. The trees manage fine. They take care of their own system and they manage to grow on their own. So they're capable. It's a complete system on its own. And that is why it is called a regenerative system. And that is where permaculture comes in. Okay, I took up like 6 minutes of your time without coming to permaculture also. I'm so sorry, Shweta. Okay. Here we go. So what is permaculture? First of all, the term was coined by somebody called Bill Mollison in 1978, thereabouts. And the word is a contraction of permanent agriculture and also of permanent culture, permaculture, agriculture and culture. Initially, it was all about agriculture, but eventually they realized that culture cannot be separated from its people. Culture, tradition is something that needs to be included. And that's why permaculture became permanent agriculture plus permanent culture. All right. Now, the aim of permaculture is to create systems that are ecologically sound, economically viable, and self-sustaining. These are three very, very important things. They have to be ecologically sound. That is, they take care of the earth. They have to be economically viable, which means they have to take care of the people. And it has to be self-sustaining, as in it takes care of itself, right? Now, permaculture studies applies holistic solutions that are applicable in rural and urban contexts at any scale to create resilient and regenerative systems. Now, the beauty of permaculture, as I was discussing this morning with Shweta, is it is not about setups. It's not about urban or rural. It is not about farm or home. This set of principles can be used across everyday life in your offices. So I see a lot of architects in this talk. I just want to tell you guys that permaculture is something that is capable of changing the way you design, because it is all about understanding what is the most important, what is the most frequently accessed, and what is the most useful, and what needs the least attention, and placing those elements in those orders. It is just that. And it's like a toolbox, right? It's like a multidisciplinary toolbox which includes agriculture, water harvesting, renewable energy, natural building, agroforestry, waste management, animal systems, technology, economics, community development, you name it, it has it. You just open this miraculous toolbox and you pick what you want to do out of it. I have chosen two sectors. One is urban permaculture and I love social permaculture. These are my two favorite boxes. Now, it's all up to you as to what you want to do. Okay, now, who is permaculture for? That's very important, right? Because we don't, everybody keeps asking, who is it for? So, permaculture is a solution based approach to conscious design. It alters one's lives, their relationship with Mother Earth, and all her life forms. Therefore, this is a course for anyone, regardless of your origin, your gender, your age, and if you like to, or if you want to make a difference and live an ecologically balanced life and contribute towards a sustainable future, then this is for you. Yep. Any questions till here? Is there anything anyone wants to ask? No? Okay, and permaculture is not rocket science. It is just application of common sense with a couple of basic design tools, right? It's very simple. It is as simple as saying that I use turmeric, chili powder, salt, mustard, oil every single meal. I use pasta and pasta sauce occasionally, right? So you keep the pasta and pasta sauce away. You keep the chili powder, turmeric, mustard, oil close at hand. It's as simple as saying that. All right. And so in spite of all this, there are something called 3 ethics of permaculture and 12 principles. Now, there are, some people say there are 10 principles, some say there are 12, but 12 is what was the original once suggested. So that is what I will look at. So first we'll come to the ethics of permaculture. They are earth care, fair share, and people care. These are very, very, the names are simple, right? It cannot get simpler than this. What does it mean? Earth care is obviously caring for the, the systems, the earth, and ensuring that whatever you take from the soil, you give her back. You don't be greedy. You're not, my mentor, Narsana sir always says, don't rape the earth. Don't keep taking from her, give her back. All right. So that is earth care. Fair share is basically trying and understanding that we are not owners of the land. We are just the custodians of the land. Who gave us the right to say 5 acre zameen mera hai? 5 acre aapka kaise hua? Who gave you the right to say this is my land? I own it. There are microorganisms which have been living for millions of years before you. It belongs to them. There are birds who work there. There are animals who walk there. What about them? Isn't it their land too? So we say that you are just the custodian of the land, not the owner of the land. And that is where fair share comes in. So when you plan your area, you plan not just for yourself, you plan also for the organisms on the earth. You plan for the birds, you plan for the bees, you plan for the wild boar, you plan for everything. Okay, so that is fair share. And fair share also means that if you are the custodian of this land and somebody else is toiling on that land, then you ensure that that farmer or that laborer gets an equal take on whatever is produced. That is being fair. All right. Then comes people care. Now, what could people care mean? People care cannot be any different. It means that will a laborer who's toiling on the soil be happy if his family is unhappy? No, he cannot be happy. Can he concentrate on his work? Can he concentrate on the work if children are not educated, are not getting medical facilities? They cannot, right? Can a farmer work in isolation? He cannot. If the approach to the village, the road is not right, and only the road to your farm is good, is it going to help you? It's not going to help you. If there is no water in the farm, there is water in your field, is it going to help you? What will happen? People will not be appreciative of your farms. So you have to ensure that you take the society along with you. You ensure that the society is moving up and forward with you, right? That is people care. So earth care, fair share, and people care are the 3 ethics of permaculture. Now we come to something very, very basic. I'll go on to the next slide, which is more visual. It's called the 12 principles of permaculture. I'll run through it quickly. So one principle is creatively use and respond to change. Now, again, this is a very simple term, right? It is, you have to be creative and you have to envision the possibilities and intervene in effective ways. If you see a drain collapsing somewhere, do not build the drain again there. but you try and understand, why is the drain collapsing there? There is a problem. If there is water which is getting filled in one part of the farm, figure out why it is happening there. Don't try to patch it. Find out creative solutions. If you don't have a stick, this is in an urban setup, like I don't have, my creeper started falling down, I didn't have a stick, I didn't know what to do. So my daughter comes up and says, Ma, use the PVC pipe. So there was an old PVC pipe, we used it, right, for as so the creeper could go up. So use creative ways to work on it. If you don't have a seed starter kit, use the trays of eggs, right? So eggs come in those trays. You can use those for starters, for your seedling starters, right? So find creative ways to um, take your things forward, and you respond to change. Second is observe and interact. This is something that was told to me, and I tried to put it in use, but it only made sense to me when I actually was in a field. So what happened was, we were digging for, we were doing earthworks on a field, and we were thinking of, this is where we should do the digging, this is where the pit should come in and stuff like that. And then we realized when it rains, the water flows in a certain direction and might have missed the pits we are digging. So only when we watched the water flowing through the river, we realized, through the field, we realized that there was a slight slope in a way that we hadn't realized it. So only after we observed this, interacted with the land, that we understood that there were changes that needed to be made. So the second principle is observe and interact. The third is catch and store energy. So we believe that energy is the most precious thing that we have, correct? It cannot be created nor destroyed. So permaculture is a closed loop design where we do not waste any energy. So whatever energy is available, we put it to optimum use. So example given is harvest while it's abundant. Sab kuch time pe karo. There is a time that, the optimum time for everything is when it is at its peak, right? So catch and store energy. The fourth principle is obtain a yield. That is, make sure you're getting valuable results. What happens during monocropping, or when people do not think beyond one type of plant, is they have to wait for a long time before they can get anything back. So what you do is, maybe you do polycropping. You think through what you want. So if you have trees which will fruit in 5 years, what are you going to get out of your field in the remaining 4 years, right? So think of what will grow with your trees. You could have herbs, you could have vegetables, you could have other little plants. So obtain a yield, make sure you get something. So what this does is, it keeps the enthusiasm level of the person who's working on the field high, because nobody wants to wait for 5 years to get back something. Nobody has that kind of patience. So think of how you can get something back constantly, keep the interest growing, and keep the profits coming in. That will keep helping you. The next one is self-regulate and accept feedback. So what happens is, when we are planning this, we are doing it with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of hard work. And sometimes we just are not ready to accept that maybe we are going wrong. The whole point of permaculture, and one of the main principles, is that we need to accept feedback and be open to modify our dysfunctional system. The next principle is use and value renewables. So what you mean by this is, you reduce dependency on scarce resources. So think of ways like water harvesting, think of ways where you can use the solar energy, the wind energy, try and harness these so that there is less dependency on other sources. Produce no waste. Composting is our king. We constantly talk about composting, and ensure that, because it's a closed system, we try to put everything back into the system to generate some other form of energy. Design from pattern to detail. This is one very beautiful. So each of these principles are a topic on their own. I'm just trying to cram them in. Design from pattern to detail is you observe natural or social patterns and apply them to design. So if you notice in nature, there are certain patterns that everything has, like the circular patterns of a shell. The leaves have serrated, edges sometimes, and sometimes they are tapered. Sometimes every leaf will have a different structure, and every structure has a reason. Like the web of a spider is built in a certain manner because it has to be tenacious, it has to be strong. It may look weak, but it is not. It is extremely strong. Um, it can help, it can stand wind speeds of I don't know how much, but it can, and it is really strong. So it's built in a certain manner because of the pattern it is using, right? Uh, the next principle is integrate, where we capitalize on how things work together. So integrate, not segregate, is the whole line. Basically, it is like how to work as a unit and put every aspect of everything into one working unit. The next principle is use small, slow solutions. Now, in this generation or in this new age farming, everybody's out for quick results. 15 din mein kya ho jayega? 15 days, we want results. But that's not always something possible. So permaculture teaches you that slow and steady really does win the race. So you do small, slow solutions and you figure things out. The next principle is use value and diversity. So basically, like we said, when we have more people around, everybody comes with their own ideas, everybody comes with their own thought processes, more creative inputs. So we need to value all of them and try and integrate and use those as well. The last principle is use edges and value the marginal, which is a simplest example is there is the river and the riverbank, and the richest part of this whole the river and the riverbank is the edge where the water and the land meet. It is the most fertile part of, that soil is super fertile. The edge of a forest and the start of a meadow, the edge is usually the most fertile. So understand the value of the edges or the margin spaces. Most people ignore the edges, but in permaculture, we don't. That is one of our key resources. Have you guys slept off?
We are very much here.
Oh, we're listening to you.
Okay. Okay. Now we come to urban permaculture. Now, why do you think we need urban permaculture? Why do you think we need it?
Because all the thing you said right now seems very hard to practice in a urban city.
Actually, no. You would be surprised. It is not. It's quite simple, actually. Okay. Also, the reason is most of the population has moved to the urban setups rather than the village setup, right? So most of us are living in the cities, right? And we can't constantly blame the villages and say, hey, we will continue to ruin the earth, but you keep working in the village and ensure that we have our green points. Okay, so our lungs are you, but the body will, generally ruin. So we can't keep saying that to them. It is completely unfair, right? So we need to do our bit also. And that is where urban permaculture comes in. Yeah. So urban permaculture aims to transform cities by making them greener and more sustainable, by giving residents the option to join a more holistic way of living, even in big cities. It helps to create a continuous cycle where everything is used to its fullest potential and nothing is wasted. That is a good book, Field Guide to Urban Gardening. It's a reasonably fair book. Yeah. Okay. Now, the biggest constraint for anybody who is thinking from the urban angle is space. हमारे पास जगह नहीं है, जूते रखने के लिए जगह नहीं है. Where will we grow, plants? That is the usual question that we get, right? But there are so many, we tend to overlook so many spaces that that it is it is amazing when you start actually opening your eyes and saying, oh yeah, I can grow here as well, right? Uh, by growing, I do not mean that you have to grow a crop. You do not, it does not mean that you know you have to have the year supply of wheat growing in your apartment complex. It essentially means that you get something out of the space that you're living. Chota karo, start small, but then everybody can grow, right? So there are different ways that you can grow things. Okay. Container gardening is something that all of us have done at some point of time. Matke chote chote laga diye, right? We put in small pots here and there, tried it, right? So it can be in the balconies, it could be on the ledges, right? Now we have these fancy hanging pots that are hanging from the grill, with those hooks and stuff like that. And you can have it in your patios and your balconies. And they're ideal for your container gardening, and you can grow a lot of fruits and vegetables. I have a balcony which is about 4 feet by 8 feet, I think. And like some of my friends laugh at me because only trees seem to grow in that area. I live on the 9th floor. I don't know why trees are growing in my balcony. But I have tamarind, jamun, lemon. I had jackfruit. I had chiku. I have avocados, tomatoes, brinjal, chili. Did I say lemon already? Yeah. Curry leaves and stuff like that. Yeah. Now, it's possible. And I do not even have an east facing balcony. I have a west facing balcony. Okay. My balcony gets sunlight only for about 4 hours a day. Right. And like I said, we live on the 9th floor. So it's not even very open types. Okay. So yeah, so you can do container gardening in your balcony in whatever space available. You do not have to have 40 pots. Even if you can keep 2 pots, if you can keep 2 containers, start. Please start. Right? If you can get 1 plant, please start. Yeah. Now, one of the, most of us only think about the space that is there niche. We say, oh, 4 by 8, we'll have say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pots, and that is the only easy space. What about the walls on the side? Have you ever thought about the walls on the side? Vertical planting, right? You could make a trellis. A trellis is, again, something very, very simple thing to do. It's just 1 pot, 1 container at the base, a bamboo structure, crisscross it and get a creeper growing. You can get your beans, you can get so many other things happening there, right? You can have flowers growing, you can have multiple creepers, and if you're lucky, then you can have passion fruit and stuff like that also, right? So just remember that if you do this, make sure that these things are fastened properly to the wall and are strong enough to support the weight of all that material. That's all you have to think of. And the sky is the limit. You can use these bottles to grow things. You can use coconut shells. You can use a friend of mine recently, she went to the shop and used kulhards hote, those small chai clay cups that you give for chai. She's painted those and she has hung those, and they look so pretty, and they're growing herbs for her. So she has fresh herbs, plus she has the advantage of having a very, very pretty garden. Yeah. So vertical planting is something that you should all consider, because all of us have walls. Window gardens means those boxes that you can have that can be strategically placed near the windows. They've, these, when I say window gardens, we usually are thinking about these squat boxes that are there, and you can plant herbs and just outside your kitchen window, or in Mumbai, we have these box structures, box grills outside our windows, wherein we have a window and we have this grill which extends like a box. And then you just place your container of plants and you get fresh herbs in your kitchen. Yeah. So there are other ways. If you have a small garden or something, then a front yard or a backyard, then I would talk about flower beds. I would talk about keyhole garden beds. Do you want to hear about it? These keyhole garden beds? Yeah. Okay. So keyhole garden beds are very simple design. It's basically the center is a compost It's used for compost, and the plants are planted around it. Okay. Now, I didn't know this when I was doing research for this presentation, is when I figured out that the Keyhole Garden was first made popular in Africa. I didn't know that. Okay. So the reason that the compost bin is placed in the center is it holds moisture and nutrients, and because it is an active compost pile, uh, that area becomes extremely rich, and it is formed in a circular pattern so that it is easy for you to go and check on all your plants, water all your plants. So, the energy flow is very beautiful in that. So that is one amazing way of planting in your yards. The other thing is obviously raised garden beds, where you have a slightly raised structure, and then you plant on that. So this is again another way of doing it. I'll leave links for all of these with Shweta on how to go about each of them. I'm not going into details with each of them because it's going to take a lot of time. Yeah. So I'll leave information about each of this process with Shweta, and she can probably send it across to all of you. Yes?
Yeah, sure. We can
Yeah.
share it in the WhatsApp group also, which we have made. And yeah.
Yes, we can do that as well. Rooftop gardening, again, is if you're living in an apartment building. So this is again something very interesting that some people in Hyderabad, I live in Hyderabad, have done. But obviously you need to take permission from your society and get, certain things ready. Is they have started community rooftop gardening. So essentially the entire apartment has contributed towards building rooftop gardens in their community terrace. So they have, have made sure that they can have at least fresh fruits, fresh vegetables and some herbs throughout the year coming from their roof, right? A couple of things that you need to be sure about is obviously the drainage system should not be clogged, because all that soil going into the drainage system will clog it, right? So you need to ensure that the drainage system is steady. The terrace is waterproof, right? You have to ensure that there are no leaks happening. Otherwise, the person living right below the terrace will have an issue. He'll have seepages happening. So you need to ensure that it is, the seals are right. The waterproofing has been done. And obviously the building structure has to be strong enough to hold the extra weight. It's not like you're planting oak trees, but then also you have to just, understand what is happening. Okay. Shweta, how much time do we have?
We have 10 minutes. And we have
Okay.
questions and answers also.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll not go into the details. If you want, I'll share all these all this information with you guys. I'll just say that while you're designing your permaculture space, you start small. I know it is very tempting to just go out. I did it, and I fell on my face, wherein I went and bought 20 plants and 20 pots, and I said, I'm going to take care of all of them, and all of them died. I have killed so many plants, it is not funny, right? So do not do not jump in head first. Please take in easy baby steps. Learn your way to a graduation. Learn your way to having 40 plants, right? Kill one or two. Everybody will kill it, but then just ensure that you don't kill 20 like I did. Okay, so start small. Understand where your water source is. Somebody had asked a question about water source, and it is very important to identify your water source, and based on your water source, you have to identify the plants that you will sow, right, or plant. And obviously remember seasonal, remember local. They are the best. They are, heirloom seeds are seeds that have been, are a farmer's treasure. They are part of history. So you should ideally use those because they are the most potent of seeds. They are the strongest of seeds, and they belong to us. They belong to nobody but us. So we'll keep our culture, our tradition, our roots strong. And seasonal, there is a reason that they grow during a particular season. It is because that those when eaten during that season, will give you the maximum benefits. They will give you the maximum nutrients. They'll give you the right nutrients, right? So seasonal and local should be your mantra for everything, right? So do you guys want to know about composting? Shweta, Monali, anybody? Or should we just go on?
Anybody wants to know about the composting? Raise your hand. Or probably like we can take it in another session for composting because
Yeah.
a lot of time and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just skip the entire composting thing. Oh, then I'm done. Okay. So yeah, so you want to take questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have already, sorry, 5 minutes left. This basic version will again log off.
Okay.
So should we come again and take question and answers?
I am
Uh,
okay. I'm
Many
okay.
questions are already here. We can
Okay.
take one or two questions and then we can go. Reshma has asked any tips for how the principles of permaculture can be implemented in an office environment.
Oh, beautiful. Uh, Reshma, this is actually was my teacher training project when we got this question. So what we had done is we had identified the key things that you want in your office, right? First of all, you need a reception, you need the bathrooms, you need a small break area, you need a conference room. Correct me if I'm wrong. These are the basic things that an office will have, right? These are the things that constitutes an office, right? So in permaculture, we have something called zonation, wherein we design zone wise, zone one, zero, zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zone 0 and 1 we consider as the home zones, zones that you need every time, are constantly accessed. Okay. Zone 2 are things that, you can go every alternate days or less likely to be accessed. Zone 3 is even less, so weekly or fortnightly. Zone 4 is maybe monthly, and zone 5 is the wild zone, which is essentially open for everybody. Now, this, if you notice, I'll give you the context in a farm, is your home is zone 0. Okay. Your cow shed and your kitchen and your compost bin are zone 0 and zone 1, right? And your vegetable patch will also come in zone 1 because it needs constant attention and you need to go there every day, correct? Zone 3 and 4 are your fields, right? So ek bar sow, if you sow and you water and sprinklers are there and system is in place, then you don't need to go and constantly visit them, right? And the wild zone is essentially your fences and your barriers and stuff like that, where you essentially don't need to visit. You leave it for the wild animals, you leave it for the, just let it grow wild that soon. Okay. So in the office, what we decided, what is the center of an office? What is the hub? So the hub would be a place where everybody gets together, right? So the seats are the center. Everything else emanates from there or springs from there. Now, suppose your cafeteria or your coffee machines are kept in a spot. You do not want the boss's office next to it, right? You do not want it because an employee is taking a break in the coffee shop or in the near the coffee machine. They might be gossiping. They might spend a couple of minutes de-stressing. You do not want them having to cross the boss's office every time they're doing it because the guilt will kill them or the boss will keep an eye on them, right? So you do not want the cafeteria right next to the toilet. The stench might be something that you have to think about, or it. So you don't design it like that. So you design it in a manner where it's an easy path where everything enters. You identify what is your single most important zone, which is your home, which is the thing that you need to access. So the coffee machine is something everybody will access. The washroom is something everybody needs to access. The conference room can be a little far away because it is going to be something that is not going to be as frequently used as the other spaces. B, it needs some kind of it needs to be safe, right? It needs to be quiet, it needs to be silent, it needs to have some kind of privacy. So you keep that conference room a little away. Maybe the game zone or the recreational zone is not near the conference room, it is on the other side, right? Because that also needs some kind of privacy, right? So that is how you plan your office zone. It could be from small to big. Now I'm talking about a big office, I'm talking about all the areas. Now you could organize your workstation also based on these principles. You can organize what you need the most closest to you. Like in the first drawer are your stationery, because that is what you need. But do you need a stamp and a stapler every single day? Probably not. What you need probably.
Building, we are dependent on the building water. It's
Correct.
probably somewhat chlorinated. Is that a negative in
Okay.
permaculture?
Yes, chlorinated. See, ideally, water, what we drink, it is, we use water which, like I use the water which is um, from my aquaguard, whatever water is filtered, I save it in a drum and I use that for my plants. So it has certain amount of chemicals, and that is the water that I'm using for my plants, right? So I think that is the kind of water that you will get in your building also, right? Now, sir, to answer your question, some amount of chemicals are going to be there in the urban setup, right? We cannot say, oh, we are 100%, right? It's always going to be some kind of contamination is going to happen. A lot of us use a lot of chemicals, be it or in using while cleaning the floor, mopping the floor. So that water goes into the groundwater, and that is the water we get, right? So it's never going to be 100% organic way of living when you're trying to build a terrace garden. What I think is, at least if you begin, well begun is well done, right? So at least you begin, try your best to keep a minimal amount of contaminated water, like we say. Try and use the water that you and I consume, and maybe we can build on it, and eventually we'll find out. And as if I'll also do my research, and if I can find purifiers or anything, I'll get back to you with that. That will help the system.
Thank you so much, Uma. Few more questions, like which we got it in our form. Uh,
Uh-huh.
how does one introduce? Shivani has asked, how does
Uh-huh.
one introduce urban gardening and farming to people in the right direction to ensure maximum implementation? I personally think that it's a need due to the rapid and largely unplanned urbanization.
I agree with you, Shivani, because that is exactly what we are doing here, aren't we? It's we are talking about permaculture, or we're talking about greening our balconies in the best possible ways. What the pandemic has taught us is we cannot rely on anybody else. We have to be as self-reliant as possible, right? Kam se kam apni mirchi, tomato, to, we can try and grow on our balconies. Nothing else. We'll have at least some basics in place. Um, Having said that, if we can start talking to our children, if we can start talking to our neighbors, even if each one of us manage to convince one other person, then I think we would have started a moment. It's not crazy to actually stop and identify a spot and say, hey, I'm going to drop a seed ball here. It's not crazy. Tomorrow you might have a creeper there. Day after tomorrow you might have a pumpkin coming out of it, right? um, do whatever you can, green whatever area you can, talk to as many people as you can, right? And read up. There are lots of lovely stories. In fact, again, the Better India has an entire section on sustainability, where they post such amazing stories of people getting about 80% of their produce from their terrace garden, right? 80% of their monthly vegetable needs is coming from their terrace garden. That is such an awesome thing, and it is all urban, right? There are lots of stories, and in all these stories they have given step by step guidance on how they are doing it, right? So all we need to be doing is search, right? I mean, it's everything happens for a reason. All of you here are here for a reason, no? Um, even you've just heard 2 3 words, permaculture ho gaya, urban gardening ho gaya. Just read up. There is so much material out there that there is endless material. We can all make a change and all need to speak to our respective children, our respective younglings, to get them to work on this. And I think that is the only way that this is going to go forward.
Yeah, that's what
Thank you, ma'am.
we are.
No
Uh,
problem.
that's what we are trying to do it in Unmukt also, to create eco communities, because एक के करने से कुछ नहीं होगा, हमें और भी लोग
Yeah.
चाहिए हमारे साथ में.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you mentioned, you had only 3 people, and by the end of it, you had 120 people helping you out, right? 15 din mein, if you can do it, 120 people, imagine the kind of change they can bring in. If each of them just plants one tree and ensures that another person just plants one tree, imagine the effect that it will have, correct? So that is what community is all about, right? That is how a movement starts. No, not nothing is wasted again.
Yeah, if you believe, just start
Yeah,
doing it.
just do it, don't think too much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Uma. And another question Prema Anjali ji has, is
Mhm.
it safe to grow vegetable plants in thermocol boxes in terrace garden? Because thermocol boxes are
Yes,
quite popular these days.
yes. See, it's again, thermocol is not very biodegradable, but they are very light. And yes, you can use anything and everything to grow, right? If you can find a use for something that cannot, you know, be thrown away and takes a long time to, it's not degradable, then you just use it in the best possible way. Like, plastic is used. We use cartons, we use plastic, you use thermocol as well, right? It is perfectly fine as long as you have enough holes to at the bottom to let the excess water drain out and all that. It is perfectly fine. I think it should not be a problem.
Monali is asking, like, what is the one simple change we can bring in our life to make a big impact?
Uh, I desperately want to say composting because it is again
Yeah.
about not wasting anything. But I'm going to say something which is a little more philosophical, which is about when you do anything, when you buy anything, think about what do you really need it. There is want and there is need. So what you want is everything. But if you just stop to think if you really need it, then maybe we'll have a little more sustainable living, right? So we will not go into unnecessary buying, and then it will help us declutter also. So yeah, that is what I want to, though I'm trying to practice it myself.
Yeah, true. Another question Apurva has, what kind of
Mhm.
biodiversity have you found apart from plant life in your balcony? Tell us about your experience growing your food in.
Uh, okay, so I have found caterpillars, I have found bugs, I have found earthworms, I have found bees and butterflies and lizards. Now none of them are around because I have a kitten who insists on eating all life. So yeah, uh, so I was extremely thrilled. We are having grasshoppers, and yesterday I found 2 dead grasshoppers, absolutely mutilated. But yes, those are that is part of living, and I cannot change his basic nature. Right, it is his job to hunt. I can't change that, but I'm hoping he'd learn eventually. But yes, thank you for the question, Apurva. Uh,
Yeah,
yes, the kitten is also part of the biodiversity. Absolutely.
two more questions, Uma.
Yeah.
Shweta has asked very simple question: which is better, planter box, growing plant in a planter box, or in the soil? Which is better? What do you think?
So because we are in the urban context and we are constantly talking about apartment buildings, then there is no question it has to be in planters, because how will you have soil beds in on the apartment balcony? It is going to be a big problem, uh, um, with the clogging, with the cleaning and process like that. So planters, I think, would be better in a balcony setup. But if you have a space where you can actually plant on the soil directly, that would be ideal. That is like awesome, right? In fact, because we have Apurva here, I think Apurva, maybe you would want to answer this question.
Apurva,
I
are you there? I think some
She's not here.
connection problem, probably.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So Apurva is also one of the architects and permaculturist, and yeah, we met. I met her in Aranya.
Aranya as well.
Only. So yeah. So one more question
Am
from
I audible?
yeah, Apurva, we can hear you.
Uh, Hi, I just wanted to hear the question again.
So which is better, planting trees in planter box or in the soil?
Okay, it depends if you're in an urban situation or rural. If urban, use whatever you can, just as Uma said. But if you're definitely in a rural setup, you're going to use the soil. So, yeah, your context matters where you are and how you grow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Apurva.
Thank you.
Another, Ariman has asked this question. Here it's the desert sand, which might require more water, and we have to depend upon the water tanker. Any solution to this, please?
See, water would be needed for plants, right? But what you can probably again do is choose plants that require less water, right? There, if you do a little research based on the area that you live in, you will have certain set of plants which grow naturally there. No, so try and figure out what are those plants, and again try looking into rainwater harvesting and stuff like that, which will help you have a steady supply of water. And also think about the local context. You have to understand that if you are trying to grow a plant like a banana which requires a lot of water, or a sugarcane which requires a lot of water, that's not going to happen. Please understand the soil, the condition, the weather conditions of that particular area, and try and grow that. It will grow in abundance and it will grow happily and make you also happy, right? So instead of trying to turn the way a plant grows, change your mindset, understand what grows where, and use that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Soma. Any other question? Uh, Yeah, I have a small suggestion.
Uh,
Is it a problem to organize any farming kind of webinar, basic vegetables? I hope Unmukt would have done works in farming also, a small video kind of growing tomatoes, beans, brinjal, okra. Yes, sir, we need your support in that to create. There is a lot of data available, and yeah, that's why, like, this is just the start. We are going to have more such talks also, and we need your continuous support, each of you, to take this forward, to spread the word.